Let
Good
us know.
afternoon, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Just to confirm, everybody's here for the Who's Who in the Office of Tribal Relations. If you need to go to the other session or you expected the other session, let Angela know and she can help you get into the right sessions here.
In the chat, right, Angela?
Okay, yeah. If you're having any trouble, go ahead and put it in the chat and Angela can help you. All right, so I'm going to kind of be looking at two different screens here, so I apologize in advance. All right, so you're here for Department of Children, Youth, and Family, Office of Tribal Relations, Who's Who, and we'll get started. Brandy, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, okay. So the map on the screen is by Aaron Carpello, and it shows the traditional names and locations of the Aboriginal territories of Indigenous peoples throughout the United States. Land acknowledgements are a way to recognize and respect the lands that you currently occupy by living and residing. Since time immemorial, Indigenous people have been the traditional caretakers of this land. By acknowledging the lands you are occupying is to recognize the truth, honor the history, be aware of the present, and respect the future for generations of Indigenous people to come. Some agencies are taking a pause on land acknowledgement practices. The historical and anthropological facts demonstrate that many contemporary land acknowledgements unintentionally communicate false ideas about the history of dispossession and the current realities of American Indians and Alaska Natives. Those ideas can then have detrimental consequences for Indigenous peoples and nations. We all have the capacity to connect to the lands we are on by becoming caretakers and stewards of the land, by blessing the land with our respect, love, and honor, not just for ourselves, but for future generations to come. Multiple viewpoints, including Indigenous viewpoints, are necessary to get a more accurate view of the history. For that reason, we will share some of the resources the Office of Tribal Relations utilizes to build on our own understanding. And Mandy, I believe, put those in the chat for you all. And this map is one of them, and then there's a couple other ones in the chat that I want you guys, you could save them and go check them out at a later time, but they just give a little bit more history. Next slide, please, Brandy. All right, so at this time, we'd like to introduce ourselves quickly from the Office of Tribal Relations so that you can learn more about us, our roles and responsibilities, and how we can best serve our partners. So my name is Mindy Flett. I am the Tribal Child Care Licensing Consultant for the Office of Tribal Relations. I'm a proud descendant of the Spokane tribe, where I was born and raised, and where my husband and I raised our 4 Spokane tribal children. I still reside on the Aboriginal lands of my Spokane ancestors. In the chat, I want to invite you all to share your name, your pronouns if you'd like, what is your role, which agency or tribe do you work for, represent, or are a member of, and whose lands are you currently residing? Everybody wants to take a few minutes to put that in the chat. We can kind of learn where everybody's coming from, where they're working. And then while we're waiting for that, I'll pass it on to Brandy to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for being here on day 1 of our conference. It's really exciting. My name is Brandy Otto, and I am with the Office of Tribal Relations, and I reside on the Coast Salish and Squaxin lands, and I will pass it on to Miss Angela.
Good afternoon, Angela Bay, Office of Tribal Relations Administrative Assistant. And I am going to pass it on to Wendy.
Katsala. My name is Wendy Thomas. I'm the Tribal Early Learning Liaison here with the Office of Tribal Relations, and I will pass it on to Mandy. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mandy Moreland. I am the Tribal Foster Care Licensing Consultant. I'm an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation along with my 2 children, and I reside on the traditional lands of the Puyallup tribe and Chehalis tribe. And I will pass it on to Betsy.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Betsy Tooley. I'm an ICW consultant and tribal liaison for Region 3, which covers Snohomish, Whatcom, Skagit, Island, and San Juan counties. I'm a member of Makah Nation and welcome you all here today. And I will pass it on to, is Sally here? I can't see everybody.
Hi, Betsy. Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone. I'm Sally.
You're muted, Sally.
Yeah, I've seen that. Sorry. Hi, Betsy. Hi, everyone. I'm Sally Nelson Hoya. I am the Qualified Expert Witness Coordinator with the Office of Tribal Relations, and I've been in this position since June 16th, and I am an enrolled member of the Nez Perce Tribe of Idaho. Thank you for joining us for today's session. I think I was the last one. Is there anybody else in OTR? Did we miss anybody?
Kelly, how about you want to introduce yourself?
I wasn't sure because I'm not one of the panel members, but good afternoon. My name is Kelly Lynn Scott, and I am the tribal liaison for Region 5 in the Office of Tribal Relations, and I'm working on the traditional lands of the Suquamish people. Is that everybody? Okay, Betsy, back to you. Or Brandy? I'm not sure.
I'll go ahead and cover this slide. It's just going to be a very quick overview of our tribal state relations. It's called, as you can see, it primarily focuses on Washington, but I do want to preface this by saying that tribal nations, tribal communities, tribal families, or tribal leaders have always advocated for the well-being of children and families and their tribes in general. From very first contact, whether it was during forced relocation, during treaty times, or during forcefully placing children in boarding schools. Sometimes it wasn't as effective as they wanted, but nonetheless, our tribes have always advocated, and that includes here in Washington State. There are some of our advocates, whether they were tribal leaders, Indian organizations, grassroots, or family members, were advocating in the late 60s, early 70s for with the state of Washington. They were noting that their children are disappearing. They were being taken from families. There was no consideration given to relatives. Tribal nations were not being involved. And they met with state leadership as well as attorney general's offices. And out of those meetings, the Office of Indian Affairs was established in 1972. It notes here on this first little under the Office of Indian Affairs, also it references the Office of Indian Policy. That was established in 1990. And the Office of Indian Policy helps to guide, facilitate tribal state relations. And it really is actually, they oversee all agencies under the umbrella of DSHS. Our Child Welfare Agency used to be under DSHS, as many of you know. Since we've broken away from that, we don't work as closely with OIP, but we do have now our Office of Tribal Relations. In 1976, or I should say in the 70s, the advocacy by tribes, tribal leaders, Indian organizations, and grassroots peoples continued. It's ongoing, quite frankly, even to today. And some of that advocacy led to passages of Washington Administrative Codes, WACs as we know them. And there are a few different ones, WACs specific to child welfare matters regarding Indian children and their families. And one which continues on to this day is the Local Indian Child Welfare Advisory Committee. It is now, it was in WACs now. It is currently still in our policies and actively operating throughout the state. That's an important venue. Previously, tribes at this point in time, didn't have as much infrastructure. So we often staffed cases of local tribes. Now tribes have so much infrastructure. We quite often staff cases that involve out-of-state children, and those children who are still working to determine their Indian, whether or not they are Indian children under the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. Again, it was tribal advocacy that pushed this forward. We had our allies, including attorneys and agencies, along with tribal leaders, families who brought lawsuits to say, you know, you took our children without due cause. What's going on here? This culminated into congressional hearings, and it was 100% passage for the Indian Child Welfare Act in Congress. This is the law of the land today. As many of you might know, it's been challenged from the get-go. And one of the biggest and scariest, if you don't mind me saying, challenges was just recently, these last few years. And we were so happy, so relieved that the Indian Child Welfare Act was upheld by in a 7-2 decision by the Supreme Court. Even many of the more conservative justices supported it because they recognized tribal sovereignty is valid, and tribes have an interest in their children and families. And so we're so happy to see that pass this last summer. Our own tribal leaders from Washington State were out there advocating, as well as Ross Hunter, our secretary, Talina, our director of tribal relations. So we were all out there supporting these efforts. In 1987, the 701 policy was developed, and that was when we were still under DSHS. So we adhered to this policy, and that policy guides tribal state relations. It provides the parameters and framework to help us successfully have government-to-government relationships with tribes. We want that with every federally recognized tribes, but this was driven by, again, our Washington State tribes. And I'm proud that our agency and our state administrations and our Attorney General's office support these efforts. Now that we've moved out of the DSHS and have formed Department of Children, Youth, and Families, we've taken that policy, and it's now called our 1003 policy. Again, that helps to facilitate our government-to-government relationships between tribes and the state of Washington. In 1989, under the leadership of Governor Booth Gardner and the state of Washington and the 26 federally recognized tribes entered into the Centennial Accord. And from that flows a lot of our policies, including, you know, our government-to-government relationships, how we administer those. And the Centennial Accord actually applies to all state agencies. It was just held this last week. So our tribal leaders come together with the governor and his administration, as well as the leads for all our different state agencies, and come together to work on facilitating, solving problems, and facilitating our government-to-government again. As you can see, our government-to-government relationship is so important to all our work. And we uphold that, we support it, and I'm proud to work in the state that does recognize that. Let's see, what do we got here? House Bill 1661 created DCYF. That's when we moved out of DSHS and the umbrella of DSHS, and formed this agency that includes JR, juvenile rehabilitation, that Brandy will talk about, early learning, we'll talk about that further as well, and our child welfare agency. And under DCYF, we now have the Office of Tribal Relations, led by Talina Ives, and with a pretty large staff. So we're happy to be here to introduce ourselves and talk about our programs. And I just wanted to reference just real quickly you know, again, I just remember hearing from tribes years ago, because I'm old and I've been around, that they were pushing and asking that we implement, you know, that we develop and make sure that we have a state Indian Child Welfare Act. And a lot of the reason why is because maybe we wanted to clarify and strengthen some of our Indian child welfare policies, but also because we didn't know what would happen with the challenges to this Federal Indian Child Welfare Act. So we wanted to make sure those protections remained here for our tribes, all Indian children that we work with in this state. So that was the passage of the Washington State Indian Child Welfare Act. And again, I'm really glad that our state supported tribal efforts to make sure that this act passed. So real quickly, I'll hurry up to the next slide because I know we've got quite a few other folks. Next slide. Brandy, and that's yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. That was a nice recap. I'm having trouble with my slides. They're not like moving forward. My enter button is like really hard. I'm trying really hard. So I apologize for that. Then it started going and my hands were up. I'm like, wait, what's going on? So I apologize for the technical issues there. As Betsy said, we are led by Talina Ives. She's our Director of Office of Tribal Relations. And she has two assistants, basically, really one amazing one, Kelly Pelland. And if any of you have ever emailed us or anything, I'm sure you've had introductions with her. Unfortunately, she's not in our sessions today. We also have Angela, who introduced herself earlier. And then she also has, basically, she oversees 4 supervisors that are under her. And one is Bob Smith. He is the ICW program manager. We have Wendy Thomas, who actually introduced herself earlier. I am Brandy Otto. And we also have Cassie Anderson, who is pretty much in charge of this whole DCYF conference and is busy on the sidelines doing all of that. So just a couple of things in regards to why we have the Office of Tribal Relations. As Betsy said earlier, we started off in DSHS, and when we merged to become our own Department of Children, Family and Services, DCYF, we started this really to enhance and improve our relationships, that government to government relationship. And so we've done a lot of things in the past few years, and one of them is this conference. It was really important for Talina to show that we really value this, and this is our 4th year running, which is really incredible. So we're supporting the delivery of DCYF services that are of high quality and culturally sensitive. And really, what I've seen and what I've heard throughout the few years of its inception is we're really embracing hearing tribal voice. I've been a part of the ICW policies and procedures revision. And with that is we brought the tribes along with us, and we wanted to hear from them. We wanted to hear their voice, and we wanted them to be a part of our policy building, which is really one of a kind, because in all the years I've been here, many years, we've never really had that opportunity. I think we've tried it before, but this year I feel like these past couple of years we've done it with such grace and really ensuring that everyone is heard at the table. And so I feel like we have some really good progress with our policies, and next year they'll go live. And with the help of all the tribe voice, I think we have a really good product. So we're really excited about that.
Hi, again, this is Betsy, and I'm going to just talk briefly about our folks under the umbrella of Office of Tribal Relations is our Indian Child Welfare Program. That is supervised by Bob, as Brandy had noted. Robert Smith here, but he's better known as Bob. He's our supervisor, and I have 5 counterparts across the state, of course, because there are 6 regions. And so we've got LJ in Region 1, Billy, Region 2, myself, Region 3, Gabby in Region 4. We're so happy to welcome our new counterpart, Gabby, and Kelly Lynn Scott in Region 5, and Tonya in Region 6. Jeannie also is on our team. She is actually now overseeing the case review process. She's taken our old tools updating them, revising them, and we're doing that in a tribal state work group. And we're going to come up with a great product. And we really want to make sure that we are supporting and adhering to the Indian child welfare policies, as well as the state and federal ICWA. So Jeannie's going to lead those efforts. Once we get that in place, we're going to support our staff by going out and finding out what's going great, but also finding the areas where we need to improve. So we look forward to, we know Jeannie's going to lead that really well. So next slide. So in our child welfare program, we have some similarities across the state in our different regions, but there could also be variations. But all of us are involved in helping facilitate the local Indian Child Welfare Committee, also known as LICWAC. So we have teams throughout the state, so we can recruit LICWAC members to participate in reviewing DCYF child welfare cases of children who are or may be Indian children. And it's really great. We get some great expertise from a wide range of participants, from tribes, from Indian organizations, and even from the general community. So that LICWAC team is very important to our work. We get the tribal eye on those cases to help provide guidance. We can provide case consultation on an individual level to staff. We might provide regional trainings. We also do headquarters assignments. We might participate in policy work groups or help revise or develop forms that are specific to Indian child welfare, maybe tools and tip sheets. So we keep pretty busy at both the headquarters and the regional level. We also help access qualified expert witnesses, and we are really looking forward to working with Sally on that. She'll tell you more about what a qualified expert witness is, but it is a required person under the Indian Child Welfare Acts that we have involved in state child welfare dependency cases. So we might help with local Indian child welfare case reviews, where we look at cases, see what's going great, but also areas that we want to improve on. So again, it's clear we have a wide range. Some people do some coaching, hands-on in the field to help people learn to become comfortable working in Indian country, or helping develop active efforts plans, any number of things. So I think, does anyone have anything to add to the child welfare team? If not, we can go on to the next slide.
Hi. So the next kind of department within the Office of Tribal Relations we have is our early learning and licensing. This is headed up by Wendy Thomas, who's our early learning tribal liaison. And the early learning tribal liaison reports directly to the Director of Tribal Relations, Talina, and is responsible for all aspects of partnership and collaboration with the 29 federally recognized tribes in Washington and other tribally affiliated and urban Indian populations in the arena of early care, education, childcare, and foster care licensing. The early learning liaison also oversees the IPEL, the Indian Policy on Early Learning Committee. Let's see. And so then next we have the tribal childcare licensing consultant. So that's myself, and I work closely with childcare licensing, safety and monitoring, child protective services, and tribal nations to assist them with licensing, certification for payment only. We also have Carla, who is new to the Office of Tribal Relations as well, and she's our child welfare early learning navigator. And her role is to help increase the number of effective and successful referrals from CPS and family voluntary services to support the community and families to ensure and promote those long-term positive outcomes for our children. Next, we have the Tribal Childcare Foster Licensing Consultant, which is Mandy. Mandy works closely with DCYF Licensing Division, Foster Care Safety and Monitoring, LDCPS, and she's responsible for overseeing the development, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of services and practices. And and then working closely with child placing agencies and tribes and intergovernmental agreements. And finally, our newest team member, Reina Espinoza Ives. She is our Tribal Early Learning Fund Specialist, and she's going to be supporting all tribal children from across the state in all methods, tribal programs, not tribal programs. We want to make sure we're reaching as many tribal children as we can. So Reina's really pulling together all of that information to help us support the TELF funding that we'll be getting to get out to tribes. Next slide, please. I'll move my slides. So the early learning team is responsible for partnering with all tribal nations in the state, recognized American Indian organizations, or RAOs, and our urban Indian populations. Some of our early learning supports that we consult on within the agency would be the Office of Early Learning, which includes ECAP, Early Achievers, professional development. What does the trainings look like for our providers? What does it look like for staff? Our workforce development. We also support strengthening families in the federal and collaboration initiatives. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more info about the licensing consultants, myself and Mandy. In childcare licensing, we partner and assist tribal nations, RAOs, and urban Indian populations to become licensed, certified, or certified for payment only. We provide technical assistance, risk management, and health and safety support to our tribal partners or anyone supporting tribal children. And one of the biggest things is to analyze the federal and state policies, the regulations, and the legislation with agency-wide and tribal impact in the forefront of of what we do. We have to think about that every time, and then recommend revisions as needed. And then I'll pass it over to Mandy to talk about foster care licensing.
Thank you, Mandy. So as the Tribal Foster Care Licensing Consultant, I partner with and ensure tribes and RAOs are informed of the changes within foster care licensing and assist with accessing licensing services. So some of the work that we're doing currently is we are working through an ad hoc work group with tribes to develop a pathway for tribes to access the initial license and the kinship license for tribally dependent children. So that is something that we are working on in collaboration with tribes to help them achieve access to all of the same services that children and families in DCYF have access to. And that goes across all aspects of DCYF as far as the licensing goes, that I partner with the DCYF and with tribes to ensure that tribes have access to those services. I also analyze the DCYF foster care policy practice project development to determine tribal impact, recommend revisions, and ensure tribal considerations are at the forefront of implementation. And this in particular applies to the, as some of you know, the Caregiver Supports Project. That is a very large project that's occurring within licensing that is changing the landscape of licensing and how it operates. And so we are actually moving to a formal consultation in accordance with the 1003 policy with all of our tribal partners to determine the impact and the considerations that tribe have with the implementation of that project. And then I also assist tribes, RAOs, and tribal child placing agencies and intergovernmental agreement tribes and DCYF staff in tribal foster care related questions and needs. There are a lot of outreach of different DCYF workers asking about, staffing a case for a tribal family. I've also had referrals of families who were looking to get licensed and who would be best to contact. I've had tribes reach out and have questions about where they could send their kinship families for licensing. And so that is some of the work that I do as a tribal foster care consultant. Thank you.
So we're almost done with our org chart here. We had to divide it because there's so many different sections with us now, which is pretty exciting. So I'm over on the far left, and I oversee the JR tribal liaison position. And next is Cassie, which we kind of introduced at the very beginning, as we both report to Talina. And she has several, as you can see, several vacancies. So look for those if you're interested in becoming a state employee under Office of Tribal Relations. We'd love to have you apply for those positions. And then we have Miss Sally, who introduced herself, and she is our QEW expert witness, or she's not our witness, but she's our liaison for that. Then we'll move on to really what is JR and why are we a part of this JR mix? And there's two ways that that tribes and JR and DCYF merge. And the first one I'm going to talk about is what we call the Community Justice Accountability Act, and it's called CJAA. And in the 90s, the legislatures gave us money, and the money was to go to tribes that were to provide services ultimately for youth to stay out of our court system. Like, that's our ultimate goal there. It's not a lot of money, but it definitely is some money if you want to try and do a project or really kind of focus on youth and that court piece. It does every year. It hasn't increased since I've been here for the past 4 years. And I think that it's $9,233. So it's not a ton of money, but it's enough money to maybe get some forward movement for your tribe. So if you're interested in that, we have our email at the end of the presentation, and you can email me for more questions about that or comments in regards to the CJA grant. Then we also have our residential custody agreements, which is an RCA. And these are agreements that we have with tribal courts that OTR DCYF has in order to streamline the process, in order for, if they have a youth that the tribe is unable to have resources for or placement, we are able to utilize some of our facilities that we have under our umbrella to serve that youth. And so if we have that agreement already signed, there's no transition of money. It's really just a government to government relation in regards to finding that placement and getting them placed and getting them the resources, which wouldn't cost the tribe any monies. So it's a really good system. We have 2 major facilities right now, which is Echo Glen, which is in North Bend area, and then we also have Green Hill, which is in Centralia, and then we also have some community facilities as well. So we have the RCAs and we have the CJAAs, and both of those, if you want any more information, please reach out. We would love to chat with you more and get some more education around that. Any questions about that? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Brandy. I did see a question in the chat asking if there's a way that we could get a copy of the slides to the participants.
Will do.
Okay. So my name is Sally Hoya. I am the Qualified Expert Witness Coordinator with the Office of Tribal Relations. Like I stated earlier, I've been in this position since June. My supervisor is Cassie Anderson. She is the Operations Manager for the Office of Tribal Relations. She also started her position in June. There are 5 positions in the office of under Cassie's team, the operations team. So my role as a qualified expert witness coordinator is I'm going to be assisting DCYF staff with obtaining QEWs when they have Indian children in care. In order for me to do that, I am attempting to streamline the QEW process across the state of Washington right now. I have met with several attorneys, the Attorney General's office that represents DCYF in court, to see how they've been doing their process now. We also will be looking for recruiting and retaining current QEWs that we have in place that have testified for us in court. We hope to offer them contracts. We are in works with that. We also will be looking at training for both DCYF staff and potential QEWs. Also tribal QEWs who would like refresher training sessions. So we are looking at that right now. Along with this QEW process, this may mean more forms for DCYF staff to complete. I know another form for DCYF staff is not very fun, but it will be most likely part of the process. There is a new Chapter 19 in the new ICWA manual updates when they go live, hopefully soon. Also under the operations team, what our operations team does was we'll work to assist all aspects of DCYF by supporting our tribes, and that is why several positions have been created for the operations team to support our tribes, to support our DCYF staff, and to help DCYF maintain compliance with ICWA. Along with my position, there is going to be a training coordinator position that will be posted soon. They will provide expert consultation and advice to DCYF staff, create training information regarding tribal relations, look at training needs for both tribal staff and DCYF staff. They'll plan, develop, implement, and provide and monitor all statewide training activities for staff. We'll also be looking at aspects of program management statewide to include contract management and monitoring and doing evaluations. The tribal prevention specialist will be hired to provide expert consultation and advice to DCYF staff. They'll create and disseminate critical preventative services information for American Indian and Alaska Natives, children and families. They will also have some oversight and planning and curating and supporting a full continuum of cultural responsive services for Native families in Washington State. The LICWAC coordinator, there are LICWACs being held in several regions here in the state. This position, however, will monitor the adherence to LICWAC policy and the tribal state agreements. They will not be overseeing the LICWACs or taking over the LICWACs. They'll be looking at streamlining the LICWAC process. They'll be looking at ways that we need improvement for LICWAC and identifying training to rectify areas of concern. They'll just monitor the policies and procedures of the LICWAC and ensure they're going as scheduled and as needed. The LICWAC coordinator will develop and maintain working relationships with local tribes and recognized American Indian organizations, or RIOs. They'll also work with their tribal consultant, because the tribal consultants right now in each region that facilitate the current LICWAC meetings. There will be another position that is to be determined. It may possibly be a NAIR position, a NAIR liaison, which would be the Native American Inquiry and Research Program liaison. We heard, if some of you attended the session before for NAIR, you might be familiar with that. So be looking out, as Brandy said, the LICWAC coordinator and a training coordinator, the LICWAC coordinator and the tribal prevention specialist will be posted very soon. So be looking out for those positions. But that's the operations team with OTR. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box.
We also wanted to share with you, this is our email address, and it's pretty much, we look at it daily, so it's a good opportunity to get a hold of us. And then we were going to show you our webpage. And it looks like we're trying, oh, there it goes. And it looks like we're trying to get this PowerPoint in chat right now. So hang tight, we are doing that. So this is our tribal relations page. And the link was in there. And so when we get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see the link. But just so you kind of know what's in it, we have off to the left are kind of the guides in regards to what the different links are. And then all of our newsletters that we've done throughout throughout this year are on the far right. And then current events are in the middle. And so we do try to keep this updated. And so yeah, we're right here. We're at Save the Date. It's already here. So we have the DCYF conference. So just wanted to give you those two links, the webpage and the email. Hey, Bets, were you able to get the link into the chat?
I'm sorry, I was not able to, but I sent it to Sally and Angela and a couple. Can one of you please? I emailed it. Can one of you please put that in the chat since I'm technologically challenged?
Yes, and if we can't get it, we can always send it out later as well.
Okay, and I did email it to you, Angela, as a friendly heads up, and to a couple of you.
Okay, thanks, Betsy.
I'm sorry, I'm not too techie.
Sorry, I'm not able to, it's on my screen, so I'm not able to do it without all of you being being aware of what's going on. So I just wanted to open it up. Are there any questions that anyone has? Comments? Well, happy to stay on for a few more minutes. If you wanted to put anything in the chat, we can answer some questions. If not, I hope you have a great evening.
Like Talina has a question.
Not a question, just a comment, just to be able to listen as I see the growth of our team, as you've seen in the PowerPoint, and just wanted to share how proud I am of the Office of Tribal Relations and the work that everybody is doing. And as mentioned, you know, we want to be a resource to tribes and also to the state in all of the areas to help build and strengthen that government to government relationship. And we have a wonderful newsletter, as you may have seen on that right sidebar of the tribal relations page, lots of other great resources on that webpage, including some trainings that we offer, including since time immemorial, early learning curriculum. And we've supported that in the past, usually about 4 trainings a year at different programs, conferences, and then it kind of slowed down during COVID. But we recently translated that into Spanish. So that was another recent accomplishment. And some of our other accomplishments just include the overseeing the ICW policy and procedure development. We finished consultation. We have a couple more consultations coming up in other areas. And the not this last ledge session, but the one before, we advocated for the decision package that brought in 72 new positions to the agency to support the implementation of the new requirements, heightened standard of reason to know for Indian child welfare. So we are also actually adding the draft policies. Those should be up pretty soon, unless they're already up. I haven't seen them, but I know that we've been working on getting those up so people can start to get familiar with them. Just minor technical edits. So as Sally said, that QEW chapter is brand new. We have a brand new Reason to Know chapter. We have a brand new Active Efforts chapter. So some really great content that we've been able to do as the result of some very strong tribal state relations. And we want to be a resource to all of you, and please do reach out. And my main reason for jumping in is to just raise my hands to all of our staff to say thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for everyone who came. We will be having a closing session, breakout session. If you can go back to one of the Zoom links for the closing session at 3:50. If there's no other questions, I believe this will end our panel.
There's one other question in the chat.
Okay.
So it looks like, does this office handle the review of ICW cases that is outlined in RCW 13.38? Talina just said yes, we do.
And Jeannie, I don't want to speak for Jeannie because that's actually what we hired Jeannie to do. I had previously written decision packages in the past to focus on that exact piece of our RCW that talks about the case review, and we finally have it. And so that is a lot of the work that Jeannie Olney is doing. So Jeannie, do you have anything that you want to share there?
Hi, I wasn't expecting to be here. You know, all I can do is say I'm just brand new into the position, and we are just developing our newest tool in collaboration with our tribal partners, and just really working to ensure that it matches our newest policies and procedures. And so it's very much in the beginning. I keep calling it a drafty draft stages, but we're moving right along and hope to have a finished product soon. But that's all I'd have to add at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeannie. Allison Jones, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Whenever we got kicked off this morning, the secretary mentioned that like wanting to support people and being able to be trained with different things needed. And so positive Indian parenting was one of the ones mentioned. Do you know who we would talk to if we wanted support for our for us to get trained in that? I work for the Cowlitz Indian tribe and just started here, so I'm new to these processes and people. So
well, welcome, and we have just recently paid for a delegate from each tribe. I think we even had some extra spaces, and delegate from each tribe and recognized American Indian organization to participate in the Train the Trainer for positive Indian parenting. Cowlitz Indian tribe is one of the tribes that we've had a contract with for a long time to provide positive Indian parenting. And we also just recently awarded a few tribes a bigger contract using some philanthropic funding, and with a match that we had to add to it, who are also implementing positive Indian parenting. And so this is something that we want to be able to make more widely available and to be able to support that. That is something that the tribal prevention specialist will do. And so while that position's still being, out for recruitment, you can reach out to any of us. And I think that's also hopefully something that you could take away is that there's no wrong door with the Office of Tribal Relations. We have the Tribal Relations email as well, but reach out to any of us and we'll make sure to get you in touch with the right person. So that is a great question, and thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm taking over for one of the people that used to be a co-lead with that group. So it's something I know I have coming up to try to get figured out, where and when to get trained and who pays for what and all of that. So thank you for your help.
Terrific. We'll look for your name as well. I know that Angela is helping with our roster that we have. We have one of those trainings taking place next week, and then another one scheduled for January. We hope it's not the last either. We just need to enter another contract to do more of those trainings.
Okay. Is there someone directly that you mentioned like you can contact any of us? I didn't, I was delayed in writing down any emails or anything, so.
Tribal relations email, which we all, there's a
Hi,
handful of us that
Antonia.
monitor.
Yeah.
Until we get that prevention specialist hired. That's why I was thinking that tribal relations email might be the
Okay.
best for now. I'll put it in the chat too.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Looks like the other session is in going now, so you guys could hop off. We did put the session in your in the chat here for easy access.